Well, all right. It is a beautiful day. Beautiful day. It is Wednesday again. And of course, you have Pastor Z and Bishop T. We're back. That's right. We are back. We're here every Wednesday, 6:15. We're dealing with different topics that some people are afraid to deal with. And we are actually coming um, from the realness. We want to be real about everything that we share. We really want to reach you right where you are. We want to hear you. We want to hear you. You know, as I've said before, Bishop T has a sledgehammer, and I have a sledgehammer, and we are tearing down walls that divide the body. But in order to tear down those walls, we have to deal with issues. And let's be honest. Let's be clear. The body has issues, and when the body has issues, it has a tendency of reflecting that there's something wrong. So, in order for us to try to make up ground or try to fix situations, we have to address them. So we want you to just dive in with us, share. If you connected with us on today, hit share on your page so they can catch it on your page. But here's three ways that you can four ways you can actually catch Real Talk. You can catch Real Talk on the conference call number. That number is 1-646-224-5980. That PIN number is 334-1986. You can also go to Z Andre Huff page on Facebook, Tanya Latham page, and Mount Zion Baptist Church page on Facebook Live. And then you can go to the YouTube channel, Z Andre Huff YouTube channel, like and subscribe there. We have some special guests with us here today. We have a special guest with us to here today, and we're looking forward to the conversation. Bishop T, how are you today? You're looking lovely with those specks on your eyes. You're looking brand new. What's up? Too much?
And I'm not frozen.
A little too
I'm
much?
well, Pastor Z. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. See, I hit you right this time. I said Minister Die
At
last.
least, at least you know
All right.
who's your co-host tonight. At
That
least you
is
know that.
correct.
I'm
That
proud
is
of you
correct.
for that. You know who your co-host is. Listen, I am great. I am wonderful, blessed. Looking forward to the conversation tonight. It's been an awesome week so far, so we are just excited to be here. Listen, right now, get someone involved in this conversation with you. Tag three people to experience this with you. It's going to be a great conversation tonight. We have a special guest with us who has the experience, the wisdom, and the knowledge to share with us tonight. So we want you to get involved and share with us tonight. What kind of week have you had so far, Pastor Z?
I've had a wonderful week. Matter of fact, I stepped outside the box for just a few minutes on Monday. Mama said she wanted some barbecue, and so what Mama want, Mama get. So
Okay. What she
I
want to
think I did pretty good with the
now,
grill.
now I will say this. I will say this. It looked good.
It
I
tasted
saw
good.
your pictures posted on Facebook, and the steaks looked good. All of the meat looked good. So if it tastes as well as it looks, then you did all right.
Well, it's a such thing that in our household, I know you may not have that, but called leftovers.
Uh,
And
there you
well,
go.
I went by yesterday and I found a couple of dogs left out of all the
Did you?
meat. So apparently everybody else enjoyed it as well. So did you have a good fourth?
I did. I did. I didn't really
Wonderful.
do any major cooking for the 4th of July. We shared a little bit. I kind of fried a little fish. I didn't do any barbecuing or whatever. Nothing major. But it was good time to relax and just kind of chill out a little bit. So it was good. It was good.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, we're ready to get started, ladies and gentlemen. Please share on your page. Share with each and every one. Listen, we welcome comments and questions through the comment on Facebook Live and even YouTube. You can ask questions or you can make comments as we and our guests and us are prepared to converse on today. So if you're ready, we're ready. Let's get busy. All right. We are back. And today we're going to be dealing with a great topic, and that's celebrating our differences. Celebrating our differences, something that we was dealing with on last week. Celebrating our differences, and we had a young man that was in our comments that was actually saying some powerful stuff, some real stuff, and we wanted to bring him on today. And he's going to be our special guest, none other than Brother Dion Henderson. He's a gifted musician who have shared in several churches. And so we're going to bring him on now and welcome him to Real Talk. What's up, Brother Dion Henderson? How are you?
I'm doing good, Pastor. It's good to be here. How about y'all?
Hey, man, we're glad to have you with us. And, of course, we welcome all of the comments that you gave us on last week. And there was some very in-depth and deep comments that Bishop T had me reposting them back to the screens so other folks can see it. And she was so excited about the different statements and comments that you made dealing with church. That we wanted to bring you on last week, but you was actually in the gym at that time.
He was working out.
Yeah, that's where I'm headed when I leave this. If I don't take a nap first,
Hold
Take a nap.
I'm just trying to figure out why was you working out? What was that about?
He was working. I'm just telling you what he was.
What was out there? You talked about Pastor being extra a while ago. That was real extra.
That was a little extra. He working out. Okay, Bishop T, it's in your hands. We're gonna let you introduce Brother Dion and introduce our topic for tonight.
Awesome. Good to have you, Dion, here with us tonight, sharing with us. We're excited. And I know Pastor talked about some of the comments and the part of the conversation and things that you brought to the conversation on last week, which was very interesting because we were talking about accepting people for who they are, you know, whatever differences we may have. And you brought out a question and comment as it relates to differences that we have as far as our worship style.
Right.
Not just our worship style, but the way we do things, the way we conduct worship, just other differences that we have other than just the way we look and the things that we choose to do. And so we wanted to bring you on to kind of expound on that, as well as touch some other areas that we may go into today. And I know before we came live, we were talking about the churches, the different churches that you had served in, and not just different churches, but denominations.
Mm-hmm.
And I know at one time, at the same time, you were, because, you know, back in the day, years ago, most services started at 11
Right.
a.m. But a few years ago, there people realized you don't have to have church just at 11. And so there were different denominations that started their services at different times. And so I know at one point you were playing for a number of different denominations, non-denomination. And I know you shared with our ministry when you came to Gaston, and it was it was awesome having you a part of our ministry. But you at one time were playing for the Methodist Church, a Baptist church, or attending a Baptist church, as well as playing for a non-denominational church. And
Correct.
so with that, you know, you had different styles of music, not only different styles of music, but you had to be able to different styles of worship, the way
Right.
worship is conducted. So that's kind of where we want to start today, because what I do believe is that in order to be celebrated, in order to be received, or in order to be embraced, you also have to have a spirit of embracing others and celebrating others. So
Right.
if you will just jump in and kind of share with us what that experience was like for you, some of the pros and cons, and even what you saw, how you saw it to be beneficial, and even some of the share with us that there may have been positive feedback or negative feedback that you've experienced. Just share with
Okay.
some of it with us.
Yeah, all of that is right, like you were saying. First though, I do need to say that a part of me was in whatever way connected at some point, whether I had to find the connection or try to build the connection to every different place I was at, or difference, because it's just not the music, but it's different preaching styles, it's different styles of dress, different cultures of people. So all of that though, I found myself not really having a hard time really being able to find where I needed to go, just because of kind of my upbringing, especially as it relates to music. I was thinking about earlier, last week we were talking, we mentioned my grandmother, and about how I knew so much about the old hymns and different stuff, but just having her in my life, like my grandmother, she was, she sang everywhere she went, even when she wasn't supposed to. She gonna sing. And so just even being a child, just knowing, like, getting in her car at the age of 3, 4, and 5, I would hear Milton Bronson, the Thompson Community Choir, but she would easily could listen to the Mighty Clouds of Joy too, So being able to, having that switch, and being able to, even at that time, I didn't realize how much she was really imparting on me, just to appreciate differences and learning differences. Not just her, but like even my granddad, and my granddad played the harmonica, played the guitar, so he liked blues, B.B. King, and hearing that. My mama, she's was like 90s stuff. I remember when Waiting to Exhale, that soundtrack would play forever in our house, and my mama would sing every song. So I grew up hearing that, which is had that Waiting to Exhale. It had a little bit of everybody, from Patti LaBelle, Aretha Franklin, to Brandy. So it was a mix of music that was around me in my whole childhood. So being, like y'all said, from Center, Charlotte, we were very connected to the Methodist church in our community, which was St. Mary's. They were really sister churches, and back in my grandmama's day, they would do first and third Sunday at the Baptist, second and fourth at the Methodist. And so I grew up with these, learning about what's appropriate where, more so than I realized when I started playing places, not knowing I was taking the same things I learned from as a child with me to these places. So as you said, mentioning the pros, being able to, I think that a variety of anything, it opens your mind to be more susceptible to whatever it is, and you'll be surprised how that can follow you in different areas of your life. That if you can open your mind to different kinds of music, you open your mind to different types of other things too. So that kind of prepared me more than I realized. And the challenges, if we have to talk about them, the challenges sometimes is that sometimes people will try to, because you do something, or maybe because I played well here, or because I, was able to do this, people try to make or try to mold me what they wanted me to be and fashion me after what they desired and what they needed versus who I really am, So just because, well, you play this kind of music well, or you sing this kind of music well, this is what you need to do. Versus them, I guess, their preference, making it that because this is my preference, this is what I feel like you need to do. And I've ran into that a lot of places throughout, just being a musician anyway. People will make their preference your priority, or at least try to, and it's just not gonna work with me because I'm just gonna be me at the end of the day, which is a combination of a lot of things. I can't be boxed in. And so sometimes too, I will say that there were times out of obligation. I was especially younger when I was in college. There was places I would have to play that I really didn't feel spiritually connected to. It was a means to an end. I needed a job. And, when I went away to college, especially, up in the Huntsville area, I at that time played for 3 different churches. I was doing an 8, a 10, a 12, 30, and it was like, boy, you just gonna have to push through because you got to finish this degree, that kind of thing. But those were some of the challenges that I had. But all of that, I do feel, of course, has built and made me who I am now, not just musically, but even as a person. The appreciation for differences comes when you learn who you are yourself and know how to see that you too, in being your true self, may not always be in the mold of what people think you should be. And you can tolerate other people's differences when you learn what yours are and you want people to accept and tolerate yours.
One of the things that I heard a lot early on in ministry, even before I started preaching, that kind of resonates with me today is how important it is to be in a place, not necessarily where your gift is, or your gift or your differences, you being different is tolerated, but more or less celebrated. Because when it's just simply tolerated, it's draining on you. Because you can feel when you're being tolerated and when you're being celebrated. When you're being tolerated, you don't really have the encouragement or the you don't really have that push from others versus when you're celebrated.
Right.
And what I mean, it's because you said something, you want it to be in a place, or it's important today to be in a place where it's not gig now, right. Or it's not just another thing to do or to add to what you're doing every week, but it becomes important what you're being fed spiritually.
Right.
And that toleration can really be on both ends. It can be on your end because you're tolerating the place where you are, because sometimes, it's what you've got to do. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Because and you can't really. I don't want us to frown on musicians tonight. Not just musicians, but people who use their gifts or for ministry, and it is their livelihood. I don't think
Right.
that should be frowned on. I don't want us. I don't want to make the mistake of tonight of
Right.
frowning on that. But at the same time, you don't want to be in a place where you're tolerating everything that they're throwing out because they're tolerating your difference, or they're
Right.
tolerating who you are or what you are, or they're just tolerating so they will have this
So,
position filled. It kind of goes on both ends. And that when you feel like you're being tolerated and you're tolerating, it kind of smothers you,
yeah.
keeps you
Yeah.
from really being the creative person that you
Right.
can be. Yeah.
Hey
And I
man,
think
let me ask the question to you, you both, because y'all musicians. Let me dive in here. I can't play nothing, but I know y'all gifted in all type of areas. But let me ask the question: when you take on a position at a church, are you trying to connect to the vision of the pastor that's there, or do you just go in and operate from your own playbook? That's one of the questions I want to ask. Because I believe when a pastor, anybody he hires in leadership and music, I say all the time, is major. The music ministry is the number one drawer. I don't care how good you can preach it. It's the number one drawer. People show up for music first. Number two is what's going to reach out and grab them is the word, and it's going to hold them there. But the music ministry has to be up to par. If it's never up to par, then you ain't going to draw your people. I say that all the time. I want to make sure my music ministry is doing what it's doing, because I'm telling you, I pastored a church, my very first church, and because it was very few people there, and people was coming because I was new at the church. It was here in Gaston, and because they knew me growing up, they came to hear me. And I had some people to exit during the offering. They used the offering as an opportunity to walk around and keep on going out the door. And you know what they told me? I just couldn't take no more of the singing. Serious. And at the time, bless their heart, they was the senior choir. They were singing from hymn books, and they were singing in the, and they told me they couldn't handle it, you know, and it was younger people looking for younger music. They didn't know anything about Still Away. You know what I'm
Pull
saying?
away.
They didn't want anything about those older hymns that they were singing. Jesus is Lord, and so that stuff was a turnoff to them. But when you unite with a ministry and you're hired by a minister, do you seek to hear what he's looking for in a musician? And if do you kind of try to tailor what you're doing with the music ministry with his vision for the church, or do we operate from our own playbook and say, regardless of what he want, I'm going to do what I want to do because this is my position? Just a question.
Bishop, I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay. Well, I feel like that there's no other. I wouldn't go into a situation operating from my playbook. I feel like there's a vision of the house. And so once you meet with whoever, now you have, it may be the pastor, it may be the executive pastor, it may be the administrator, but I feel like you have to see your place in that vision.
Mhm.
I don't feel like you should go in and be like, okay, you know what the vision is. You can't operate from your own playbook because you said something very important. You said it this way, that it is the music that people really come looking for or whatever. Allow me to say it this way. The music, whether it be a praise team, a choir, a worship leader that's providing your music or whatever, that music, the music of the church, the purpose, yes, is to give praise and to worship God, but it is also to prepare the heart for hearing the word of God, to set the atmosphere for the preaching of the word of God. So for me, you can't play from your own playbook. Vision, you know the vision, you connect with that vision, and you have to operate within that vision, is what I feel. Go Dion.
Okay, Dion, let's see what you got to say.
I'm gonna be very honest because
Be honest. That's all real talk. Now we're gonna kick you off here if you can't be real now. That's what we won't invite nobody who's afraid to be real on Real Talk.
But you got the right one tonight.
Before he starts, let me just say this before he says that. I think that's the good thing, Pastor Huff, that we're trying with this platform is to agree to disagree. So we want you to feel comfortable to share your experience and really say what you feel.
Right. Yeah. You got the right one, Pastor. Because I'm okay. If you got me on here, it ain't no way. You just gonna have to exit me off before I change anything.
Just warn me before I hit the poop.
Yeah, but we need a beat.
I didn't download one, so please be careful.
You need look, and we need to download one next week because some of y'all ain't really paper Bible say.
Okay.
There you go with that. Okay. I'm trying to be nice.
But yeah, going back to that, as it relates, I can tell you now, and this is me, I've gone into, if you want to call it interviews or having conversation with the pastor about the vision, and I'm going to be just as serious as he or she is. If you tell me one thing, and then I come in and see the exact opposite, I'm not going to work no harder than you, or I may not be here at all, because you have a lot of people who, just because a pastor has a vision, sometimes now you two are different because both of you can sing. Minister is a musician, but you have some pastors who don't know anything about music at all, and they want to have the kind of music ministry that their friends down the street have, or that they, that they see their people on TV that they emulate have. And you come in and want me to do that with what you got, and we're nowhere on this. You know what I mean? So I've ran into that before, where folks, because you want me to come in and turn stones into gold, and when I can't do that, you question my ability about what I can do or what I'm capable of. And it's because you don't know what you are doing, or you don't have a knowledge of what your vision. Is it a vision from God, or is it a vision that you just have? Is your vision for this house, or is it what you want because this is what you see? And I think that in the past, I can tell you, especially, and I'm only 28, but I've been playing at churches now. When I started on playing in a position at my home church and getting a pay, I was 12 years old. So I've been doing this for a little while now, But I can tell you, when I was younger, it was just like, whatever, I didn't really pay a lot of attention, but I wasn't, mature enough to really even understand what a vision was for. It's like, okay, look, I know this is the song. Let me learn it. Let me teach it to them. But now I can tell you that when somebody, even now, I couldn't. I thank God that I have connected to ministries presently where I feel as an asset to the ministry, as well as the ministry also benefits and pours into me. And that is something I can tell you is not easy to find. like Bishop was talking about, when musicians or different people who have made livelihoods, sometimes we've had to compromise. Not that it was, the appropriate choice or the best choice, but there's several times I have found myself having to compromise my spiritual or even just my willingness. Like, do I really want to go to this church today? Do I even really want to play today? Versus, I feel like this is what God is telling me to play and sing this song in this moment, and that's something that Bishop would tell you. And I wasn't even going to talk about this, but I was I was working during that time where y'all talking about where I was working at the 3 churches at once.
Don't say the church name. Don't say.
Oh, I'm not. I was sending my tithes and offerings still to New Life, and I hadn't been inside New Life probably in 4 or 5 years. But when I needed something, I'll call Bishop, because I did not have the people, the churches I was working in or what have you. There was no connection there, and I would tell people, "Oh, my pastor is Bishop Tanya Latham." And Bishop, faithfully every week I was sending my tithe, and when I needed something, I called her. And I'm saying that's something that now I was blessed, because me and Bishop, we have that kind of relationship. Even when I left her church, I still can call her now. Been with her all day today. She had me on the phone all day today, and then still, that's just the relationship we have. Thank God for it. But I'm saying, going back to the vision, you have to make sure as a pastor or leader that your vision is truly what God has gave you for the house, and not just, well, I desire this, so this is what I want. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go back to the degree of seriousness that this minister is. And if he's not making or she's not making the appropriate steps to ensure that what God has told he or she that this is what they should do, why should I go out of my way as the musician?
Well, let me jump in right there, okay? Because I think that regardless of where anybody is, your reputation is on the line. I'm just going to say that, okay? Your reputation. Everybody need to know when they get Brother Dion, they got Brother Dion. For instance, Bishop Tanya had put me down for a reference, and a church called me and asked me about her. And I told them, I said, now you're not just getting a preacher, you're getting a pastor.
Right.
I said, if you don't want to be pastored, you might not want to get her. They said, would you sit up under? I said, I sure would, because I know the heart that she have, and I know she goes all in whenever you give her an assignment or give her a duty to do. She's going to go all in. That's just her. Now, whether the church wanted that type of a minister or a pastor, that's what they was going to get. Regardless of how they were, that's what they was going to get. And I want to say this to you and any other musician, be you regardless of who it is that you're playing for and what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, if you get up and your choir get up and y'all sounding a hot mess, they ain't going to talk about the pastor. They're going to talk about, what is Dion doing? I know Dion is better than that. You see what I'm saying? So you do what you can do regardless of what others do. And here's the thing that go ahead.
Like you were saying about versus that doing, where the question you were talking about, you said your own playbook. And my playbook, regardless of what the vision, my playbook is always going to be what God has told me.
Right.
So even in pure foolishness, because I can say I done been in some pure foolishness, that what Dion did was still what God told me, because I can't afford to not. And I say this all the time. I work for God first. No matter what name will come across those checks, God is who I have to answer to. Me and Bishop was talking today. I got to sleep at night, So I can't think of a time. And even in the discussion of differences, there's a lot, we all have preferences. We all have what kind of music we like, whatever. You're not going to catch me playing. There's some songs you wouldn't even know I don't like them because they're going to have the same zeal. I'm going to play it, sing it with the same zeal, the same conviction. I'm going to do it with the same passion I would if it was my favorite song. But that's maturity.
Right.
That's something I had to learn that.
Right.
I think, and even going back to what you said about the church you pastored, where people said they could not, take the singing. These are things that come with maturity, where we learn that our preferences are not always they're not priority. But we live in a day and time now where all of us feel like, especially the millennial generation, feel like, well, I have a voice, I have a platform, I got to be heard. It's about what I feel like, what I like, and nobody is willing to forego what I think or what I like versus what's happening or what may be best. So I think that a lot of growing up has to be done on the part of some musicians, whether they be younger, what have you, whether it's people or even congregations, that this is not you come in and hit your playlist of your favorite songs.
Right.
Wow.
And I'm saying the congregation to learn that, but some leaders need to learn that.
Yeah.
This ain't about you wanting to hear what you heard on your way to church.
Exactly.
What you heard at your buddy's church.
You got to be led by the Spirit. You got to be led by the Spirit in order to do so. Let me say this because I think you said something which is so true. It's not, sometimes you play by your playbook regarding you got to answer to God. I want to suggest to anyone, and I understand that sometimes you need money in order to make it, and people will take on positions and jobs. But if you feel like you got to do your thing versus what the leader is requesting, I would just say, hey, y'all need to part ways.
Right.
Y'all need to part ways. Because I'm gonna tell you something. I heard something, and you tell me if this is true, and don't name the church. But I heard that you was just playing around when service was over with, and you was playing an old traditional song, and you was at a non-denominational church, and one of the leaders got all over you, told you they didn't want to hear that in the church. They didn't want that sound, that type of music being played in the church. They done told you before, and y'all kind of had a few words. Is that true?
Is that true, Bishop? Did you talk that happened to you?
I'm asking you, Dia.
Look,
What happened to you, Dia?
That really has happened. You're right. That has happened.
So there are some people who are determined to drive away tradition as if traditional music has actually done harm. But they want to style their church in a way where they don't want it to be affiliated with nothing traditional. And so whenever someone even start going that way, they have, now I'm not going to name the church.
Brittany, no.
I'm trying to not even read Brittany comments because I'll fall out laughing. Because Brittany knows she can tickle my funny bone like nobody else.
Yeah,
so every time I see her pop up, I'm trying not to even read what she said.
But let me tell you about my musician, and I've shared, and she'll tell you in a minute. Now I want to attract all classes, the old, the middle, and the young. So I tell my musician, you do some of the contemporary. There's nothing wrong with doing some of the traditional, as long as you put your heart and feeling in it. Don't get up there dragging no song, because I got to get up and preach. Now, my elderly people, I tell my musician all the time, I got them, because I'm going normally, I'm an old soul. I'm normally going to get up and I'm going to sing something traditional whenever I get up to preach, because that's what gets me in the place. But I don't want my younger people to be feel like, oh Lord, here they go singing "Love Lifted Me." They and I remember someone telling me one time, "What's a charge to keep I have?" Nothing wrong with songs like, cause that's me now. Yeah, charge. Hey, I'm telling you, I would go there because I'm old school like that.
And
But
it's
I
needed.
do not want to lose the other class. I don't want to
That's
lose. I want to try to reach everybody. And one thing about transforming a ministry or trying to change a ministry, everyone that's in the choir is not receptive of what the musician is trying to do. So sometimes the musician will get cold feet and will be afraid to enforce what the pastor is trying to get them to enforce. Not that they can't play it, but because you got more members in the choir and they there at rehearsal and they don't complain about the song selection, you have a tendency when the pastor get here on Sunday morning of still hearing the things that he's trying to get them to try to step out and do something different. So you can't be afraid as a musician to do those things that are necessary to make some changes.
You're right. I feel like, like I said, both of y'all are very musical. Y'all, so coming from y'all to, I understand that, you're going to be more active and more involved in the musical aspect of your ministries and even have a clearer understanding than what some pastors ever would. And I'll say this, no matter what it's, I've never, no, even though I have taught some, like the situation you brought up earlier, in which I don't know how you know about that, but
hey, this is gas, man.
I know. Hey, say it again.
This is gas. You do know that, right?
I didn't know that was something people knew, but okay. But because I'm the kind of person, and I do pride myself on whatever I do, I'm gonna give it my best. I'm gonna do it to my, the best ability that I can. So I feel like even not to my knowledge has anything ever come across to me that if the songs weren't going over well or something like that, because I'm gonna work. I'm gonna work it to the best. I'm gonna pull it out of the people if they have to whatever it is. I'm from the country, so I know it's certain things that we country folks we like, but when you get me, it's some stuff that you may hear every once in a while. It's more classical oriented, or it's more northern, like Chicago choir, Detroit, and it's stuff at first that people may not be like open to, but you have to make them understand, and that's not even so much spiritually as it is natural to understand. Listen, you don't know what you don't like because you don't know if you don't like pizza if you've never eaten it, so you have to try, and let's try to do. I'm gonna say this: a lot of people, like I said, I'm from center country, and I love it. But my favorite gospel artist, Richard Smallwood. So that's more classical, all this, elements that people you don't really hear in church. You hear Richard Smallwood songs in church, it's typically the same 2 or 3. Center of My Joy, Total Pray, and that's, pretty much it. Because he can get real different when it comes to harmonies and parts that people they don't want to hear. Now, I was more open to that as a younger musician. I like that kind of stuff and the more whatever. And I used to almost cringe at stuff that was just too basic. And the reason I'm saying all this, even now, like 4 years ago, if you put on any quartet music, I would run away quicker than you could sit down. And now, if you go on my phone, I got more quartet music on my phone and listen to more quartet music on a weekly basis. And now I'm even in a quartet group, something. But it all comes from being open, So I think that people, whether you're in music ministry, pastors is leading churches with vision, we need to have, like you all were talking about last week, Bishop said something that was so good, and I loved it, that when we talk about differences, realizing that the same way you want people to embrace your differences, you have to be open to embrace other people. And whether you understand it or not, like it or not, there should be an appreciation there, and there has to be a respect there. Right. It all comes from maturity. So back to when you were talking about the church, the people that needed to grow to understand that it's more than what my ears said. That Sister Mary Clarence, she needs to feel like she's a part of the ministry, and if she wants to sing "Still Away" on the second Sunday with the senior choir, this is relevant and needed, and it's bigger than what I like, or more so than what's fitting or my preference. You know, all of that comes from maturity. And let me say this: leaders need to be teaching that before we keep compromising and saying, "Well, I want my congregation like this," or "We want the young." That's good. Get the young people, but teach them. Right. And even the older people, teach them. Listen, Sister Mary, this ain't gonna always be still away.
Right.
Because the people gonna run away. You know? So this, and I'm saying service we have to get past this stuff that's just really kind of silly, you know, to really even be such major issues in the Black culture. Because I'm gonna tell you, who don't have these problems is our other sisters and brothers.
And you know what? I was gonna mention that because what they'll do, they will do. We think that churches have to be overflowing or overflow because we have another service. But I've seen with our other brothers and sisters, they will do a service at another time for a traditional worship experience. Mm-hmm. And then there's another service time for that more contemporary worship. Mm-hmm. The more contemporary worship.
Some weeks they'll combine them, you know, and I feel like there has to be some time. And if that's what works, you know, then, you know, to God be the glory. But I think that we have to this stuff needs to be taught across the pulpit. And, you know, whether it's favorable or not, whether people want to hear it or not, this is what the survival of our churches depends on this issue right here.
Survival.
You're going to have the old and the young come together.
They got to bridge the gap. Some kind of way you got to bridge the gap. Today we're celebrating our differences. We're talking to Dion Henderson, who have played for several different churches. He was born and raised in a Baptist church in Selma, Alabama. He has played for Methodist Church, non-denominational church, Baptist church. So he have had a opportunity to be a part of different services, and they all have different style of worship. But my question to you today is, Dion, are they preaching Jesus?
Who is they?
The different churches that you've been to, have all the different churches, have you found them to preach Jesus?
Well, I'm going to tell you now, I'm very blessed with the church that I attend, as well as the church that I work at. That was my prayer. I'm 28 now. When I was like 24, I started going through some stuff that we all go through, learning about, you know, really just, you know, you can be raised in the church and you know things, but when you start getting to that maturity thing where it's like, I need more, like I'm going through some stuff in my life. I'm crossing some roads I've never crossed, and I got to have something to get me to the next stop sign, the next whatever, you know. I got to have something to progress and sustain me. And that became my prayer at that age. I had just started law school, and my grandmother had just passed, and it was a lot going on in my life that, you know, that just was very shaky. And I had to realize that the stuff that you learn, now it's time to apply the stuff, the little Sunday school and the little Bible studies and this stuff that you learned as a kid. Now it's time to learn how to daily apply this to your life, and you need something to sustain you. And these little, you know, fly by night, this ain't gonna cut it, because you've been raised differently. You know better than just ABC. Let's go.
So my question to you, Brother Dion, is that the different places that you've been, whether they are on the same level or not,
Well, that's
Did,
what I was getting
did
to.
you
So,
did you find them preaching Jesus? Because what we're trying to do is we understand that people have a different style of worship.
mhm.
But what divides the body of Christ? Just because we choose to do things at a different time, a different way. If we're preaching Jesus, then should the body be divided? And then how do the body operate divided? If you cut your body in half, the body dies. And so you wonder about the body of Christ, because when Jesus come back or when he calls us home, there won't be a non-denominational or Methodist or Baptist that he's going to be looking at. He's coming back for those who accepted him. And so we're divided here, but there's not going to be separate
Right.
places for us to sit when we get to heaven. So we're trying to bridge the gap, just like you do as music ministry, the old and the young. We're trying to bridge the gap with all different denominations and bring believers together. We're powerful. There's strength in numbers. We're powerful when we come together. So even if we have a different style of worship, and I know you had to adjust from the Methodist church, because there's a song that y'all played during the offering time, y'all sing together, to the Baptist church, to the traditional Baptist church, to the full gospel, to the non-denomination. You had to adjust, but yet and still you was in those different worship services and you was able to worship with them regardless of their different style. So I'm trying to see, how can we come together as a body of Christ and put aside our differences and be one?
I think it's an individual thing. I feel like people have to first start, to answer your question, are they preaching Jesus? You need to know Jesus for yourself first. And, not that, yes, we are the church to present Jesus, especially to those, evangelism is important. But for today, we cannot put our faith in this divided church to sustain and save us. This has to be personal. And I think that when we get the mind of the people to individually say, I want Jesus, when you go to church, you will get Jesus, whether that be Methodist, whether it be whatever. But if you're looking for the church to resolve your individual, well, this is what I want, versus this is what Jesus and this is what's needed, this is what it is. And I think that people have to make that conscious choice, and it's one of, like we said, of maturity. And I think for me, I'll say this: anything I go to, which I know church is not, being open like as it was as far as, conferences and everything, but anything that I would attend, people, y'all have said it, y'all both ministers, you get out what you put in, So I think that we have to be, those of us as the church, if our goal is to win souls, we can't let our preferences or our feelings, our emotions, we can't get so caught up into that we lose focus of, we're here to do really one thing, And I feel like if we get back that focus, and it's sad to say, but we've had a pandemic, we've had all this come, we've seen so much death, and still some of us have missed the focus. And it's like, what is it going to take for us to see that this stuff that we have trifled over doesn't matter much at all, as much as we should be getting to our end goal, what we're trying to do. So I think that's gonna take some true growing up. We got a lot of growing up to do as holistically as the body of Christ, I think.
Now you and Bishop T, y'all are gifted musicians. I have special guests for y'all today, both of you. And I just I have two special guests here. It's even surprising to Bishop T.
I
But
know you didn't tell me about it in
I
the
didn't
special
tell you
group.
about it. But they actually had a conversation with musicians. I got today special guests because I can do it like that. Bishop Paul Martin and Prophet Korn. Let's take a look.
You shall be saved. There's decisions that you need to make in your life. All of you musicians, y'all stay in while I'm teaching. Y'all need the word. Where y'all going? What you doing? I don't like that. This ain't no show. We are all growing in the Lord. Don't do that no more. If you're accepting Jesus Christ.
Okay, all right. And we're gonna come back in a minute. We're gonna come back in a minute and we're gonna ask y'all how would y'all handle all of this. Okay. Here go Prophet Corn.
Come on, clap them hands, church. Hey. Amen. That's what y'all practiced and came up with. That's what practice did for y'all. Y'all don't ever need to practice again if that's what it did for y'all. You can stand. Y'all practicing for a sounding like that. I told y'all that's not going to work in Jacksonville. Amen. You standing up for a bonus. Amen. How it was scrap. They played it like it wasn't scrap. And yield. I love it.
All right. Now listen. Y'all phones going off, ain't they? I hear them. Listen now. Now tell me, let's deal with the Paul Martin one first, okay? What you think about that? What you think about what Paul Martin did? Did you agree how he dealt with that?
Bishop?
He always want me to go first. Listen, you kind of put me in a place because I've been a pastor as well as a musician. So
but hold your point. Everyone on here, you can text, you can comment. We want to hear your comments. What you think about the Bishop Corn and Paul Martin? What you think about how they did handle that? So you go ahead and comment while they speak. Go ahead.
And this is what I want to know. I want to know if, as a result of those two videos, if the numbers jumped all of a sudden.
Oh, they increased a little bit.
A little bit. Okay. Here is the thing for me, as far as Paul Martin goes, because I have served as a musician. Let me kind of go this way quickly. Again, it goes back to really knowing your purpose and really being connected and all of that in ministry. Because number one, let me say this. I am guilty or have been guilty of making an exit after I finished playing. Sometimes it was because I needed to stretch or take a break. And sometimes, forgive me, Holy Ghost, nothing was going on. That's why I say you have to be concerned about yourself from the spiritual standpoint as well. So yes, I have taken a break. Because it wasn't, but for me, sometimes musicians do, and I'm guilty of it, because at one point I was doing my service at 9:30, leaving there, going straight to another service. So I may have taken a break and gone to the restroom or whatever like that. For me, from the pastor standpoint, I do feel like sometimes there are musicians who will vacate the premises or vacate the sanctuary when the preacher gets up to preach. I don't know if that was a problem that Paul Martin was already having or whatever, but my thing is, did they just get up that Sunday? Is it a habit? And you chose? Did you just notice it, or did you just notice it because the sanctuary was empty? But I know
Did you see when he opened the doors of the church and they all come running from the back? They start coming in like, you done turn the light on some roaches or something, they scatter. And they was coming, and he turned around looking at them like, where y'all coming from?
Yeah. So, I think that there has to be order in the sense that I feel like if the word is being preached and going forth, then I just would rather musicians stay in. If they need to go, it's not prison. If you need to go to the restroom or all kind of things, but when a musician, for me, I know when a musician is leaving or going out because they need to, because usually that musician goes out and comes on back in. Because there is something that's going on. Here again, what is the level of that musician? And let me go back just for a moment because I wanted to say this. When you have spiritual minded people and carnal minded people, the difference in that spiritual minded and that carnal minded, spiritual minded, they're trying to get the word. They want the word. And this is my thing. As I matured as a pastor, are we reading comments? For me, I knew when I had a musician.
Look at that.
I knew when I had a musician, and some of these sermons you are suffering through. Yep. You are suffering through. But when you got a musician that's there to receive the word as well.
Yeah.
To receive
it really makes the pastor think you're going out because you don't want to hear him. You done your thing. You done shouted to folks. I'm going to tell you, there was a time I remember this musician and this director. Oh, they would get on the mic and they want to shout everybody. God is good. Want everybody in the whole doggone church to say God is. I mean, they shouted them. And just as sure as they shouted them, when they done with the mic, they put it down. The musician and the director would leave out as if God ain't good no more. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, now wait a minute. If he was good when you had the mic, he ought to be still good. And I've seen things like that taking place, but she want to know who it is. We ain't exposing folk on here.
Brittany's crazy. Brittany's.
But now I'm gonna say this. Like the second video, you don't, to me, and I know some of y'all may want to throw rocks and be ready to shoot me because it's Prophet Corn. But I'll say this: if it's Prophet Corn or the next person, I feel like certain things should be done a certain way. And I know it's a way. I just think that was a bit much for me.
Now let me ask you this, Bishop, because you from the old school.
I am.
And you remember how they used to do in the old school.
I am.
So your tolerance level may be a little different. I don't know if Dion ever had somebody just publicly stop the service and call your name and embarrass you. But I, however, had a father as a pastor. And I remember folks like E.H. Rigby. E.H. Rigby in Vacation Bible School, not Vacation Bible School, but BTU Congress, he would stop the preacher in the middle of his sermon, call your name, and make you sit down. So the old school, people that's from the old school, they use that as a way of correcting. Now, I will say this. I think that was a little too much on Prophet Corn, even though I'm from the old school. But I would have a conversation at choir rehearsal or after church with that musician and the choir on what in the world are y'all giving me? I use this for an example. And I told my choir members and my musician, she's a big Alabama fan. I said, you love Nick Saban, don't you? She said, oh, yeah. Alabama, roll tide. Roll, roll the tide till they can't roll no more. Every time you turn around, roll tide. I said, now, Nick Saban don't coach the line. He don't coach special team and all this. He got coordinators. I said, coordinators give him what he wants. If they give him what he wants, he'll tell you in a minute. He'll produce championship teams. I said, and that's the same way it is with pastors. We have pretty much coordinators over the deacon ministry, over the missionary society, over the choir, over the ushers. If all the coordinators would give the visionary what he wants, he can produce a productive ministry. If you're trying to grow a ministry, you are going to be somewhat upset when people are just going through the motion, because it looked like they was going through the motion. They weren't really prepared. So Dion,
Well,
go ahead, because I got somebody that's finna pop on in just a few minutes.
okay.
I got my nephew. He's a musician too. Let's go ahead and just bring him on while you talk anyway.
Okay.
Dantes Robinson, what's up, my nephew?
Nothing much. Y'all doing okay?
We're doing pretty good. You a musician as well, so you saw what's going on as well, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Amen. So we're gonna let Dion respond to how he would have responded to that, or what he think about those two individuals and what they did, and then we're gonna come to you, a musician as well.
Okay.
First of all, I was laughing so much just because of course I was reading the comment, but just hearing Bishop talk in herself, because like she said, she's been in both roles, and I've seen Bishop Latham.
I see.
I've experienced her leadership before, but I was in a place where I could receive it. So when both of these videos, I've seen them, of course. That Brian Carn clip is a little older, but what I always do is I find more. It's more interesting than actually what happened. I go and read what the people are saying, and I think that I'm gonna put it this way: you talked about the old church and how people did back in the day versus now, and it's just interesting to see and to hear people's perspective on it, because I understand both, and I have a respect for both. But I will say that this generation, this younger generation, we have a hard time with correction. Sometimes people can tell you something in the best possible way, and we still have a hard time with correction just because we are so absent from correction. We feel like we are validated in how we feel, and we don't know anything else. It's okay for me to feel this way, and that's a weakness that I feel like this millennial generation has. Now, not that emotions are not important or that the way you do things are not important. I think that's a weakness that the older generation has. That sometimes they're so sensitive unsensitive to the way, because they're so used to order, or what they call order, not knowing that sometimes in their effort to restore order or to have things in order, they get out of order trying to do that. So it goes both ways. I think with Paul Morton or either one, I think a lot of times it's depend on relationship. I don't know those musicians. I don't know if they members there. I don't know what they're doing or who they answer to or what their understanding is, what's in their contract, if they should sit there. I don't know that. I can tell you that when I was with I've never had nobody talk to me like that over a mic, and I thank God they haven't, because I don't know what I would do. But I'm gonna say this: when I was with Bishop, or there's certain pastors who I've set up under, who I had relationship with, and who, if they had to correct me, I was open to it, because not only are they correcting me, but they've encouraged me. If they've poured into me, if they've prayed for me, prayed with me, then when it's time to correct me, I'm going to be just as open to that as I am to when you put money in my hand, when you pray for me, when you give me gas money, when you go and feed me. So when you see that I have done something that I need to be, geared up, then I'm going to receive that too. Now, I can't speak for these other people. I don't know what they, what the deal is. Now, Brian Carn, y'all probably would have had to come and hold me back.
Well, it wasn't the musicians that he was really getting on. It was the choir members.
You would have probably had to come hold me. Well, I'm gonna say this.
Yeah,
My part
because
would be right.
he says on there, he said they didn't play it like that. They didn't play
Yeah.
it like it was crap.
My part would have
He
been
said that's what y'all practiced last night. He was really talking to the choir members then.
my part. If I was singing, my part that I was singing would have been right. Then that's all I know about that.
Okay, all right. So we have Dantes Robinson, pastor. Not pastor, but son of Pastor Grady Robinson Jr. of the Mission Baptist Church, and grandson of G.E. Robinson, over at the Galilee Baptist Church on the west side. He come up learning the hard way. He's seen musicians. He actually learned how to play on his own, and he had a few people to teach him along the way. Talk to us, Dantes. Tell us your views on how you felt about those two clips.
First, good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
Thanks for having me on. With Pastor Morton, I truly agree with him. Reason being, again, I played for a 8 o'clock, a 10 o'clock, and an 11 o'clock service every Sunday. However, at some point, the musician does need a break. At some point, I do agree with that musician getting off the organ, going back and using the restroom, getting some water or something. So I don't see nothing wrong with them going out, but they shouldn't be out the whole time. It don't take 15 minutes to go outside and whatever you got to do. So I do agree with Bishop Morton that's going out. Do whatever you got to do and come on back in.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I play for my granddad church every Sunday. If I'm out 15 minutes, he ain't gonna preach 8 minutes. So I done missed everything that's going on. So you have to be mindful of the whole thing as far as playing. You gotta take it in as far as everybody's watching you. If it's so much going on, that musician and the preacher got to be on one accord where the preacher knows that, hey, I know he gonna go out, but he'll be right back in. Far as Prophet Corns, I would say that's the way I came up. It's point blank. If the choir don't sound worth nothing, they just don't sound worth nothing. I would have been embarrassed, yes, but I get criticism because that let me know it is work we got to do in choir rehearsal, and that comes from the musician and the choir director. If the minister has gave us something they want us to go by, I think we need to follow. But as far as the way he came off and told them, I would rather have it that way because that let me know it's much work that's got to be done.
Yeah. I've seen something happen a lot recently because I know a lot of musicians know how to chord and they can really play. I've seen some real gifted, talented musicians, but they're not disciplined musicians. And I've seen where I think it was James Fortune came to BOC, and there was a guy he had sang. I think his name was Sean that sings with him from time to time. And there was local musicians here playing with him. And he kept telling them, and it's embarrassing that he got to keep telling them, calm down, turn it down. You're too loud. You're too loud. And I think sometimes that's what musicians have to learn is that they need to be disciplined. Know when to raise it. Know when to kind of quiet it down because you want to accent the singer. Now, both of you have, I know, Dantes, you play keyboard. I know you play the organ. And Dion, you do the same. Now, I've seen where you have all the instruments filled, the keyboard, the bass player, the lead guitar, the drums, and the organ. And everybody want to be heard, and they loud. And nobody's accenting it. And I say all the time that the musician, the different instruments is like the choir, like the sopranos, altos, and tenors. They need to harmonize together. I love to hear the Canton Spirituals music. They music sounds so good. Like Harvey Watkins have them all together. You hear that lead guitar, the bass, the keyboard, and the organ. They all accent each other, and they sound beautiful. Don't y'all agree with me? I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do.
Well, one thing you said is discipline, and I think that even in anything, skill is important, and that is a skill no matter how well you may play, or it is a part of a skill set, knowing when and what's appropriate. And I think that coming up under the people that I came up with and the people who I looked up to, one of my idols, rest in peace, Willie Ragland. You don't play no loud music around Willie. You just not going to do it. He will make the choir sing a cappella and make the musicians cut our Bishop the same way. So I just think that, people who are very talented or skilled, it's in an area of what they're actually doing, but the knowledge of what your purpose is in the service is also something that needs to be a part of a skill set, or needs to be, seen as a strength if you can do it, or in weakness if you can't, So again, that comes with maturity, and also with your calling. If you know that you are called to enhance the service, then you don't always have to be heard. If you know that you're supposed to accompany this singer or back up this preacher, and that's what my purpose is, or if the atmosphere change, then it's time for me. This all comes with, this is spiritual teaching that people need to be, if you don't have it, some of these folks need to go back, sit up under some folks.
Well, I know that I've seen, and I know Dantes have done workshops. Dion, have you ever done workshops before?
Yes,
and I
plenty.
know Bishop T have done workshop here at Mount Zion, and they work with different choirs, and they share important knowledge of what they expect and what you should and should not do. And so workshops is needed. I know some people may think they're outdated, but it's always good to have a workshop.
And exposure to different, I think that's a lot of things too, that some people need to go outside of just what they see and what they know, and go and try to, enhance their ability by going to be around some other people, seeing some other things other than just what you think is the mold of this is the way it goes, and incorporating in that to what you do,
Dantes, you have anything you want to add, man, before we get ready to go off the air in just a few minutes?
Only thing I want to piggyback on, where everybody have to be in one accord. I have worked with a lot of musicians, and just recently, I have to be honest, I took a lot of knowledge from Dion when he was with us at Mission, and then from expanding out with Prince, and just watching as how all the musicians, they all have to be on the same level as far as the music level. I can say at one time I was illiterate probably, because I used to think that the keyboard have to be up loud, and until I started directing more and teaching, I'd rather for the music to be low where I can hear the choir and make sure all 3-part harmony, and then the music or that lead guitar thinking it's about them. And so you have to at some point know, that comes with skill and comes with knowledge and maturity, that the music, again, is there to accompany the choir, and just to make sure everything is in 3-part harmony, or whatever harmony it needs to be in, because that means a lot. The music can be A1, but if the choir is off, if the singers is off, everything is off. And so that was a main part that I want to piggyback on. And I have to say, it took maturity with me without playing so loud. It took time and me to learn music. And I can honestly say I learned more when it's time to get up and teach. When you sit back and listen and you cannot hear the choir over the music, it means a lot.
Question to both of you, all three of you, if you want to answer it. Just because you're a musician, do it mean that are all musicians able to teach parts?
No.
I just want to know that. Because you get some people who get a they call minister music, and they use that title so easy now just to let somebody occupy to feel it. They call them minister of music, and minister of music. Tell me, Bishop, what is a minister of music? Help people to understand what a minister of music is.
What I see a minister of music to be is someone who is over that music department, not necessarily. And I know for a number of years, I felt that local churches did not understand. You don't have to be, they felt like if you were their musician, you were their minister of music. But to me, a minister of music may or may not be one of the musicians. It is the person who is, from my standpoint, if I chose a minister of music, they were over the music department. They were over the musicians. They were over the choirs, the praise team, or whatever. They are actually the person that spiritually, as well as technically guides and oversees that music department. So that's what I think. But there are a couple things that I want that I do want.
Before you move forward, hold up. I want to ask a question. Okay, so they may not have to be a musician, but should they at least be able to play and give out parts in order to be over the music ministry? Should they know something about the music ministry in order to be over it?
Well, I think that
That's a
goes.
question.
Well, for me, I wouldn't have a minister of music that was not qualified as far as having the wisdom, the knowledge in playing or whatever it was. That was not able. Let me say it this way. As a minister of music, I feel like if there's any area of your music department that is without, lacking, or absent, that minister of music should be able to step into that area and continue. It's
Right.
what I feel. So I feel they should be just that well versed that they can handle the different areas of the music department, understand and know what type music should be sang, when it's appropriate, and what's not appropriate. But because I need to say this as it relates to a couple of things that we've already gone over. I think that's the difference in hiring musicians, and we're talking about we've gotten on musicians, but I think that's the difference in combining or bringing people into your ministry that are spiritual minded and carnal minded, that understand the vision and don't understand the vision. I think that's the difference. Because you not only want people who are gifted and talented, but you also want people who are saved and who are spiritual minded, or there's gonna be conflict in it. There's gonna be conflict. You want people who to connect with you, who see your vision. I was kind of in conversation with the particular person at a particular church, and I asked, give the pastor my information, let us converse. The pastor didn't want to do that. It was a complete no-go for me at that point. Because here again, let's go back. Can two walk together except they agree? So my thing is, you it's not always the most talented person. is not always the most gifted person. Does that person have an attitude to lead as well as an attitude to be taught and trained? Because that to be chastened, if we say it that way, to receive constructive criticism. So you have to see who you're stacking on your team. You have to see who you're stacking on your team. Now let me say this, because we've talked about a lot and we kind of off on this, but let me draw this back to celebrating our differences. Many times we judge people out of ignorance. We make comments out of ignorance. We comment on things out of ignorance. Dion said something a few minutes ago about exposure. One of my mentors from way back, he's no longer alive, but that was Charlie Neums. And one of the things that Charlie told me is that sometimes you have to go across the railroad track, because you sit in your little place and you feel like, and Gaston is notorious for it. We celebrate people. We have people thinking that they're all of this, they're all of that. But then when you cross the railroad tracks, hey, Dion, for example, just let me use him for example. Dion is out of Center, Alabama. I have not had a musician play for me that can go across the board as well as Dion. Dion flows well in the service. He handles traditional music as well as he handles contemporary music. He understands that as a musician, he is accompanying. I've had musicians back me up while I was preaching. I didn't change keys. They changed keys.
Yeah.
So you have to be humble enough to recognize the show is not about you. You have to be humble enough to recognize that there's a way to chastise. There's a way to correct. So when we talk about Prophet Corn, there's a way to correct. That all of that is gonna come. Do I take that as negative, or do I rechannel that as positive to make me stronger the next Sunday, to make me better the next Sunday? And so for me, we have to stop judging and making comments out of ignorance. If you don't know what you're talking about, you don't really need to be passing any type of judgment or making any type of comment. And I say that because even as a preacher, I got into a situation once before with my adjutant. Some people made some statements about the person that I had assisting me and how they were assisting me. Well, then when I pumped the brakes and looked at it, all of those comments were coming from people who were ignorant. You were passing judgment or saying something about that situation, but you didn't know what an adjutant was. You didn't know what an assistant was. And that you did know was from your preference. It was not necessarily the right or the wrong. And so I wanted to say that we cannot allow people to have us in a place because they're ignorant about what we're doing, or they're ignorant about the way that we're doing it. Because like we talked about Dion, the different denominations that he was serving, he knew who he was serving. He had to be disciplined enough. Somebody said that word. I think you said it, Pastor Huff. He had to be disciplined enough to go from that Methodist church to that Baptist church to that non-denominational church. He had to have himself disciplined, because a lot of times Methodists, they are timed, they're their own, their own. He had to discipline himself to do that. And then the last thing that I'll say is that we have to, and I think, Dion, we may have mentioned this when we were having lunch today, is that you put people on your team that you trust. For me now in ministry, even with people that I'm talking to now, that I'm conversating with now, I'm talking to them because of their ability, but I trust them to do what they know to do in the area that they're doing it in. If you have to micromanage, you don't necessarily trust the gift that's in that person.
Right.
And if I were to call Dion to work with my music ministry, first of all, Dion knows me in the beginning. We're gonna we're gonna dot the I's and cross the T's. If it's here again, I've been a pastor and a musician. If I agree to pay him something, that's what I'm gonna pay him. If we agree on a job title or job description, that's what I'm going to expect him to do. And it's not going to change in between. If it does, we need to come back. I'm going to need you to do more. What is this? We have to be respectful of the positions that we hold. But I'm not going to hire somebody or bring somebody on board the team that I don't trust to do what I've asked them to do. That's me. Even if and understanding that person, what they are about, and all of their gifts or whatever, I'm not gonna turn my music department over to somebody that I don't trust. That first of all, see the vision and know where we're going, and not just music. I don't care whether it's the men's ministry, the women's ministry, the children's ministry, the youth ministry, whatever it may be. Do I trust them to make sure that the vision for this area is carried out the way it needs to be? Now, I said a lot because Pastor Z wouldn't let me talk. So I had all these points on here.
Well, I had special guests. You got to give me a pass. I did have Paul Martin and Prophet Korn as special guests. And we do have Brother Dantes Robinson on here, so don't start.
We'll talk later because we'll be done got off into something.
Richard, you had walked away, but that's exactly what I was saying when you stepped away. When the people he asked what I thought, and I used you as an example. I was saying that I don't know the relationship. I don't know what these musicians, what they were required to do to make a comment to say whether who's right or who's wrong. And I use an example. I talked about you. I said that being with you, there's times where you've encouraged me, prayed for me, prayed with me, put money in my pocket, fed me. So if you have to correct me, just like I received those blessings, I'm going to receive the correction. And that people, like you said, sometimes we're quick to speak on what we see, not knowing. So I can say how anything should be handled when I don't know the agreement, I don't know the contract, I don't know their relationship. Is that their pastor? I don't know, So I think that a lot of stuff you said was very rich, very, very rich.
Now, somebody on there said something about a contract. And and most of the time, musicians, there are specific things in the contract. There are specific things in the contract. But I will say this, sometimes you just have to go. I had to go. I had to go. So I'm saying it could be that point.
And I think they were jokingly saying that.
About the contract?
Right here. It's on the screen now. It has to be in your contract to be in service, doing service. They laugh.
We need to talk about that because I think some people need to understand the inner workings of the church.
Well, check this out. Contract. Do musicians sign a contract in your environment?
You'd be surprised. I think I'm glad we're having this conversation. We're gonna need a part 2 and 3 with some more musicians.
Yeah. We will.
I think people need to know about the inner workings of the church.
You don't sign a contract. Did your granddaddy make you sign one?
He did.
Now, your granddaddy don't play with you, do he?
No.
He treat you just like he treat any other musician.
Yeah, now he don't look at me as a family member. And he told me that when he hired me, I expect for you to do it the Galilee way. And when Galilee open, I expect for you to be here. So he don't look at me as a grandson, but I have to hold up a standard.
Right. Because people watching you.
Yeah. Even though it may not be a written contract, if you have an order agreement, it's a contract that will uphold in court.
But
I think people need to know.
And here is something else. There was a point in my ministry where I had each position with a job description. We just want to shout, but we have to handle business.
Talk,
If
bitch,
there
talk.
is a contract, then there is an understanding. I don't have to turn around and tell you to sit down. I don't have to tell you
There
don't
she
get
go.
paid for this.
There go Miss IYC. There she go.
I love
Ready,
it.
ready to
But I'm
post something at,
serious.
post something
But
at
I'm
the
serious.
Sopranos.
You're right. People need to know. Let me tell you something, Bishop. We talked about it earlier. When we go to talking about order, and we go to talking about
Come on.
people have a hard time, and I don't know why they so bothered when it comes to even like y'all saying a written contract like that's something. Don't you go to work? Don't you punch a card? Don't you listen?
But let me tell you this though, Dion. It's hard to establish order as a musician if you out of order.
That's true.
I don't hear nobody.
That's true.
You can't expect people to be on time for rehearsal.
If you late, that's where
And
they
don't talk about it. They don't talk about it and don't get mad when they do. You set the time. I'm just saying.
You preach.
But you know, I think that we have another thing Bishop said about the exposure, not just in a way of church service, but I think people need to be exposed to even the business side of church and the way that things go, and how I'm gonna say this, and I'm not calling any names, but I know of a situation right now where a musician is in a legal battle with his church that he was employed by for wrongful termination. These are things that I think, let me say this, they show you Greenleaf and all this stuff. Y'all think that's just made up? Do y'all think some of that stuff, like, it's based off of things that really happen? And I think that people need to understand, you know, and I'm going to say this, like Bishop said, Gaston, Alabama, whatever you want to say, sometimes my mindset, we think this is it. Y'all, this, you know, and it's funny because we want what we see done in other places, not knowing what is happening to get there. Right. I'm talking to two pastors. I know y'all know what I'm talking about.
And that's what I was about to say too, Dion. You brought it back to my remembrance. Appropriate. Just because I saw it on TV or they had the voices or the people to do that. A lot of times pastors go to conferences, they go to these different places and they come back and you want to do what you saw there. You want to do what you heard there and you don't have it. So you end up hitting edit instead of doing what you're capable of doing with the spirit of excellence. I'm going to say this and go on now. And I will call the name with this because I mentioned this some time ago. When we were growing a couple days ago, when we were growing up, okay, now you had Mount Zion, Antioch, Macedonia, Mount Pilgrim, these were churches, you know, and for the most part, there were good choirs. I spoke of Mount Pilgrim because Mount Pilgrim may not have been doing the other songs that other people were doing, but when Mount Pilgrim stood up and they sang their hymns and Reverend Fleming directed those hymns, they did what they did well. And with the spirit of excellence. They didn't try to go over here and do what somebody else was doing or the most popular thing that was going on. Here again, we must get back to the center focus of our worship experiences. It is not grandstanding for a musician. It's not grandstanding for this person or that person. Worship is a time for us to do just that. Worship, and the center of that worship is Christ. It's God. It's worshiping him and us getting that word so that we can move out. I remember they could sing a hymn, honey, that would have you under the pew.
Laid
and
out.
Pastor Huff was singing A Charge to Keep Our Hair. Now, it's gonna fall different for us than it may for you and Dantes. my aunt said something sometimes, keep saying good morning. Maybe when we were in high school or in our 20s, we were struggling with the charge to keep our hair. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Father, Father, I stretch my hands to thee. But with a little time under our belts, a little time behind us, okay, this is the only thing I say. If you're going to sing a charge to keep our hair, like Reverend was doing a minute ago, he went on singing it. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
He wasn't playing with it.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So we have to look out in our churches and see who's in those pews. Who do we want in those pews? And then address it from that standpoint. If my church is full of senior citizens, then it may not be wise for me to do whatever you might be doing.
Amen.
What you want to say, Reverend?
In charge. To what key is that?
A flat, D flat, C.
No, I appreciate all of you, both of you joining. Let me ask a question. I know I've been asked a bunch of questions.
You have.
But say you're trying to move forward with your ministry. You call in rehearsal. 5 people show up. Do you cancel rehearsal? Do you continue to rehearse? How do y'all handle that? When people are not showing up for rehearsal and you're trying to teach new material, do you care? Do you go back and do old stuff, or are you going to move forward with what you have?
I'm moving forward.
My choir that I have is 5 people, but you wouldn't know it until you saw them. They sound like 25, and I like that. So I'm blessed with my folks. They like to rehearse just as much as I like to. So
I never will forget that I had a musician. I'm not gonna call his name, but when I was at Morning Star, and he called me and told me he canceled rehearsal, and I said, "Why?" He said, "We ain't have but 5 people." I said, "Well, those 5 people put aside that time to come. Don't punish them because the others didn't show up. And teach the new songs. The reason why some of your people are not coming to rehearsal, they already know what you're going to sing. They have no reason to come to rehearsal. That's just, just from a pastor standpoint. And I know I'm when a musician is not giving me what I want, I'm kind of hard, but I don't think I'm Prophet Corn hard.
I think if you got willing spirits,
I think I'm Bishop
people who want to
Martin
do
hard.
People who, if you got willing vessels, then just do what God say do, and He'll bless the rest. Bishop, what you think? You got 5 folks. What you gonna do?
Well, it depends.
What you got to do?
I got it. Well, if I had a soprano, alto, and tenor, I would probably work a soprano, alto, and tenor out of that bunch, and I would keep going. But then to me, it would probably get deeper than that, because if I only have 5 people coming to rehearsal and that's consistent, then I may need to look at not having a choir and jump coming down to maybe an ensemble or something like that,
What y'all think about continuing next week? We may.
I think you should get some more people. I think we need some more musicians. I said enough. I think some more people represented and maybe share their story and their opinions would be very good. I definitely would tune in.
But we're always looking to discuss about celebrating difference. And I think we need to, regardless of what and how people have service, celebrate them. Instead of talking about them, learn to celebrate them. Everybody's not going to worship the same way. I know some people have service within an hour. There are some people may be longer than that, but don't down the person that may go longer or the person that don't go as long. Like Dante said, his grandfather, he 8 minutes strong, but he's strong in those 8 minutes. Why would a person that want to stay up and preach 45 to 50 minutes have something negative to say about someone like Dr. G.E. Robinson, who's been around pastoring for as many years? He got more wisdom in his pinky toe than most of us have learned by studying. You know what I'm saying? He did a eulogy not too long ago, and man, he tickles me because G.E. Robinson is G.E. Robinson, and I love him. And me and Dante was just cracking up because some of the things he says is a lot of wisdom to it. And his voice I'm a person who love voices and have distinguished voices that I hear, and I'm just very fond of him. And when he speak with so much authority and so much wisdom. But we got to learn to celebrate each other and quit putting down each other, and don't get caught up in numbers. Just because your ministry may have a few more than others, don't put down other ministries. It don't mean that they're not doing anything to help promote the body of Christ or promote Christ and to move their area that they have been assigned to forward. Bishop T, you got something you want to say to these gentlemen?
No, sir, I don't. I thank each of them for coming on tonight and sharing their wisdom and knowledge that they have with us, and their opinions about the things that we've talked about. It was good to have both of you on.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you for coming on at the last minute, nephew.
All
Appreciate
right.
you.
Thank y'all.
All right, y'all have a good one, man. We'll talk to y'all soon.
All right.
Amen. We want to thank both of them for coming on with us on tonight. Dion Henderson was our special guest. And then we saw where another musician was commenting on our comments, and we brought my nephew, Dantes Robinson, on. Bishop T, anything you want to say before we say goodbye to our wonderful, beautiful, very interactive audience?
No, the only thing that I want to say, well, I can say no, just like I said to them, and then start talking. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Catch us on next week.
Amen. We out.
Bye-bye.